Defense and special teams come through big to lift the Falcons over those stinking Saints.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. So, guys, if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. the Jolly Green Giant, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. and I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for a very long time, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast, and I think each and every one of you that goes strong with me each and every day, we call you the everydayers. That means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day, and all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today we are talking about the Falcons' 26-24 thrilling Week 4 win over those stinking New Orleans Saints. Boo-hoo. Go back crying to Nola. And we'll talk about how the offense did not live up to expectations, what some of the things the Falcons have to do to get better on a short week going up against Tampa Bay next week in another sort of critical division game. But we got to start things up talking about the Falcons defense, the special teams. The reason why the Falcons won this game really boils down to those two phases of the game, where they really stepped up to really take advantage of the opportunities that they were given, getting points on the board for the Falcons. Younghoe Koo hitting 4 field goals in this game, including the game-winning 58-yarder in the closing seconds of this game. You got another boost from special teams. The first touchdown in this game was on a fumble recovery in the end zone by our guy KhaDarel Hodge on a muffed punt from Saints wide receiver Rashid Shaheed after their opening drive. And then later in the game, in the first half, you got a pick six from none other than Big Troy Andersen, big Trojan in energy in terms of Troy Andersen on a pick six in this game. And so really without those plays, this defense or this game wouldn't have won in the Falcons. And we'll start off talking a little bit about Troy Andersen, right? We got to give Troy Andersen his flowers. Even Jarvis Davis was giving Troy Andersen his flowers on the postcast. Check it out on Locked On Sports Atlanta as we speak. But yeah, Troy stepped up in a major way, made a number of key plays. You know, Alvin Kamara had a good game today, on the stat sheet, made some nice plays, some nice catches, some nice runs. But when the Falcons were often bottling up Alvin Kamara on the handful of times that they were able to stuff him as a runner and a receiver, a lot of it was Troy Andersen using that speed and pursuit. And this is what I've been talking about with Troy Andersen for the last 2 years of like, when this guy plays well, good things will happen for your defense. And we saw that on this Sunday where he's the type of guy that you can say, hey, go shut down Alvin Kamara. And again, he didn't shut him down, but it was a number of times when Alvin Kamara is on these screen passes and they're getting bottled up for 2 yards, or he's getting tackles for loss for -2 yards. You're noticing number 44 is right there, making a lot of those plays. And overall, it was a good performance from the defense. It was kind of a reverse of the last 3 weeks. We've been very critical on this defense on this podcast, because they do a lot of bending. They did a lot again today. The Saints, nearly had about 10 minutes more time of possession again in this game over the Atlanta Falcons. But it was kind of a reverse of the previous games where, the defense would struggle for 3 quarters and then kind of make the critical plays in the fourth quarter to kind of get this team back in a position to win the game. And this week, the defense really struggled out of the gates in this game in the first quarter and gave up, I think, 2 scoring drives to the Saints in that first quarter, and then basically was lights out for the remaining 3 quarters. Or I guess the Saints' second score came at the beginning of the second quarter. But they gave up those points at the end on that touchdown drive. But to me, honestly, I don't really blame the defense for that. They did everything in their power to keep the Saints out of the end zone without keeping the Saints out of the end zone. And really that drive to me is more on the offense for basically not possessing the ball nearly enough. We'll talk more about the offense and their struggles with some of that situational football late in the game. But overall, the defense, did its thing. And so they deserve, all the praise that they get this week. Again, there's certainly things that they can improve upon and still get better at, but they made major strides in this game. In my humble opinion, they probably got a boost from, Taysom Hill being out with an injury, after a very strong first quarter. He got injured with an abdomen injury and exited the game sometime in the second quarter and was not seen from again. He was kind of dominating those first two drives, and that was a big reason why the Saints were able to move the ball so effectively. And that was frustrating to be like, okay, well, I guess it's, another year of Taysom Hill kicking the Falcons' butt and always seeming to have his best games against this football team. But, fortunately, not for him, but for us, he got knocked out of the game. And so it seemed like the Falcons, once they didn't have to deal with the Taysom Hill situation, they were able to keep this Saints offense clamped down. They did give up, I think, over 100 yards rushing in the first half. Again, some of that Taysom Hill, a lot of that Alvin Kamara, some of that Jamal Williams spreading the Saints around. But then it basically shut them down, that run game down, in the second half of this game. And so that's what I'm talking about, where it's defense. If you watch, the first two drives, you're not going to look at this defense being impressive if you didn't catch today's game. But if you rewatch the game, skip past, basically skip the first quarter for the defense and just watch it like from the middle of the second quarter on, and you're going to be very impressed with this Falcons defense. And I think, a lot of it was the D-line stepping up, right? Again, it still wasn't an amazing game for the defensive line in terms of getting pressure on the game, but they did better. They did a better job stopping the run. They did better getting pressure on the quarterback. You saw individual moments from a number of players. I saw Eddie Goldman out there making plays, and Taquan Graham making plays, and David Onyemata, who's been relatively quiet for the first three games, him taking advantage of some of those injuries on the Saints interior offensive line. So it's going to be fun to go back and look at this game on film and see some of the standout individuals. And it felt like everybody at some point in this game on that defense, made a play or two. And that's sort of the team defense that you're looking to see from this Falcons defense. And so, again, there's still plenty of room for improvement from this defense, but they were the big difference in winning this game. The same with special teams. You get a touchdown on that, basically that opening drive after the offense kind of stalls out. In Younghoe Koo, when the offense couldn't finish drives, Younghoe Koo came out there and kicked it, especially that last kick where all the Falcons really needed to just get like 5 more yards, and they would have made it an infinitely easier kick. And then the Falcons offense refused to do that. And Younghoe Koo came out and said, I got this, guys. Yeah, is this the longest field goal I've ever made in my entire life? Yes, it is, but ain't no problem. It's going right down the pipe. And, I was just sitting here being like, appreciate you, Younghoe. Like, this offense did you absolutely no favors. And you're like, I got this, guys. We got this. And he did his thing. And so I always appreciate Younghoe. You remember when people were like, oh, no, what's wrong with Younghoe Koo in the preseason? Like, come on, guys. Like, we do this every year. And it's just like, calm down. Younghoe's got us, okay? This man has had us on lockdown, for like 5 years, I'm sorry. So it's like, calm down, guys. Like, when y'all sit here and, y'all did that thing this summer. But hey, you do you. Y'all worry about that. I'm going to worry about the offense. And so we'll talk about where the offense went astray, the poor situational awareness, what level of Kirk Cousins we got on the chaos meter today. All of that is still in store on today's Locked On Falcons. So, guys, I know you're itching to get back into the stadium with these upcoming home games, including on Thursday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And all you have to do is go to Game Time in order to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, whether you want to toggle the all-in prices on the Game Time app so you don't have to worry about hidden fees at checkout, or you get the what you see is what you get with those panoramic seat views. So if you want to see where the perfect spot to line up that shot of Jesse Bates taking a Baker Mayfield pass back to the house, or Justin Simmons getting that pick six to continue the streak for this defense, you can find that perfect seat by hitting those panoramic seat views on Game Time. So whether it's football tickets, baseball tickets, other sports, comedy, music, theater, whatever event is near you, Game Time is taking the guesswork out of buying tickets. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, guys, if you want to get caught up on what's going on elsewhere in the NFL, of course, Locked On NFL has you covered with 2 shows daily from Tyler Rowland and Tony Wiggins to get you caught up on what the other 30 NFL teams are doing this past Sunday. So check out Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So basically, the offense, stunk today. They didn't stink, but it was just like they did not play a winning performance, is basically what I'm saying. And like the Falcons won this game not because of the offense. They played losing performance, and especially late in the game, the situational football on those last 2 drives in the final 4 minutes, where it was kind of what we saw last week against the Chiefs, right? Where the Falcons, down 5 points, went for a touchdown, I think at the 7 in Chiefs territory, went for it on 4th down, and the Saints had the same situation, down 6, at the 7. Going for it with about 4 minutes left in the game. The Falcons defense got to stop there. And you're like, okay, like the Falcons offense has been able to kind of possess the ball pretty consistently for 3 or 4 minutes on nearly all their possessions going back the last couple of quarters. So it's like, okay, we have an opportunity to really ice this game away, lining up inside our 7. They try to run a run play. They get shut down there. They run 2 pass plays, and they basically only bleed 20 seconds off the clock. Tyler Allgeier goes out of bounds on the 3rd down instead of staying in bounds to bleed the clock. And so you don't get the Saints to burn, all but one of their timeouts. You only bleed 20 seconds off the clock. You miss a throw to Kyle Pitts stumbled on a throw. I think the throw was fine, but Pitts struggled, and it was a rough day for Kyle Pitts. More on that later. But that situational football where it's like you needed to bleed more than 20 seconds off the clock. Again, whether you're going to bleed a full 4 minutes off the clock, was debatable, but you got to get at least a minute or something, my guys. And so you get that poor situational football. Then you punt the ball. Saints start out midfield, and they go down the field and score with a minute left. And then you start the drive with a screen pass to Ray-Ray McCloud, get 5 yards. Don't have a problem with that. You want to get something going on that first play to get you some momentum. Then you get a false start. You get a 10-second runoff on that play from Ryan Newsel. Then Cousins throws it deep to Mooney. Fortunately, you get a DPI on that particular play, and so that really puts you in favorable field position. And at that point, you just need like 10 yards, and Younghoe Koo's kicking a 50-yard field goal, and you're well inside his career range. And then what do the Falcons do on their next 3 plays? They're pushing the ball down the field. And it's like, my guy, I know there's only like, 13 seconds or whatever the case may be. Just complete the ball in the middle of the field, spike it, and let's go kick this game-winning field goal. And it's just like they're pushing the ball down the field trying to get a touchdown as if they're down, 6 points or something like that. And it's like, you're down 1 point. Let's kick the field goal. And it's just like, they don't get those yards. They don't get the 5 yards. They don't get the 10 yards that they need. And Younghoe Koo has to go out there and kick the longest field goal he's ever, maybe not the longest he's ever attempted, but the longest he's ever attempted and made. And so like the offense did him no favors in this particular game. No touchdowns for the offense. It wasn't good. I don't know what to say. So, basically that situational football is just like, if anything else goes wrong for the Falcons and Koo misses that field goal, like I wouldn't have been mad at Koo for missing a 58-yard field goal. Like, what the odds of, any kicker in the NFL, let alone Younghoe Koo making a 58-yard field goal is probably like, I don't know, like a 38% chance or something like that. I don't know. But it's like, that's purely bad situational football there in the final 4 minutes is kind of the point I'm trying to make, where the offense was doing seemingly everything in their power, whether it wasn't bleeding to time at the clock, whether it wasn't getting the necessary yards to make a makeable field goal to, basically blow this game. And so that's why I'm sitting here being as critical as I am for the offense. But let's talk a little bit about Kirk Cousins and the chaos meter. The struggles of the offense, outside of Kirk pushing the ball down the field when he had no business doing it the late, wasn't because of Kirk Cousins. He had an interception in this game, but that was mostly due to Ray-Ray McCloud falling over on that particular play and the Saint guy being there when Ray McCloud was supposed to be there. But, we talk about the Kirk Cousins chaos meter. There's 5 levels of the chaos meter. There's level 1. We call this Conserva Kirk. The chaos meter comes from Luke Braun, the host of Locked On Vikings, the former, bequeather of the chaos meter. And now we do it here on Locked On Falcons. But level 1 is conservative Kirk, where Kirk is too conservative for his own good. Level 2 is game manager Kirk, where Kirk does a solid job managing the game. Level 3 is peak Kirk Cousins, where you introduce a little chaos to get him above that game manager, and you get the best version of Kirk. That's the ideal version that we want from Kirk this year. And then level 4 is that chaotic Kirk, where things go awry. And then level 5 is a level of chaos where it's like, is it time that we put Michael Penix in the game? And so I think week 1 was level 4, week 2 was level 3, last week was level 2, and I think this week I'm going to go with a level 2. We'll see what the film says, but I think overall it was game manager Kirk. You got a little chaos there at the end with him pushing the ball down the field, but not enough to make it peak Kirk Cousins. And for the most part, to me, he was just out here, executing the game plan, managing the game or whatever, but not necessarily a great game plan. Kyle Pitts, as I mentioned, struggled in this game, 0 catches on like 3 targets in this game. And most of those catches he should have caught, but unfortunately he did not in this game. And so, we got to get Kyle Pitts more involved in the offense. We thought, last week he would have a big game. He had a couple of catches. We thought this week, after the Dallas Goedert destroyed the Saints last week, we thought he'd have a big game. He didn't have that, but we still got to get Kyle Pitts involved in the offense. But the positive for the offense, Allgeier did some great things outside of that one play where he got out of bounds. But he was a real force in the run game. Bijan did some nice work as well in the run game and the passing game. Had a touchdown, wiped off the board on a screen pass that went on a bad holding call on Jake Matthews. And I say bad not because Jake Matthews did anything wrong, but the officials were like, they were calling some ticky-tack stuff all game in this game. And so, as I often say, you can only control what you can control. You cannot control whether or not the officials are going to be in your favor on any given Sunday. And the things that the Falcons, at least offensively, could control, they did not do a great job of controlling. But, I think the offensive line down 2 starters with Ryan Newsel, with Storm Norton, was not a liability in this game. Kirk Cousins was well protected for the most part. The Saints did get some pressure at times, but it wasn't as if it was a major thing. And the other positive you can take, hey, the Falcons weren't 2 for 9 on third downs today. They were 4 for 11. So, 4 for 11 is not a good mark on third down conversion percentage. You want that number to be over 40%. That's about 36% if my math is correct. But hey, that's better than 22% that they've been consistently these first 3 weeks. So we're making strides there, right? You got some big gains on some checkdowns to Bijan and Allgeier. A 3rd and 5, Bijan turned that into a 26-yard gain. That was one of the handful of explosive plays you had in this game. Darnell Mooney had a couple of other explosive plays in this game. And Tyler Allgeier on a 3rd and 9, took a check down, broke like 4 tackles on that play and got 13 yards. And so, as I've said many times before, it's like you need your running backs to be able to take advantage of that, because we're not going to get those second opportunity plays with Kirk Cousins as consistently as we would like because of the limited mobility and when the pass protection breakdowns. And so having those guys, good things happen when the ball gets into those guys, and especially with Bijan getting in space, Allgeier doing his thing as well. It just seems like, when these guys are touching the ball, good things tend to happen for the Falcons offense. When anybody else is touching the ball, it's like, sometimes good stuff happens. It's a lot more volatile, is basically the point I'm trying to make. So hopefully we can get these guys featured even more in the offense. Again, screens, they ran a screen to Mooney in this game. I'm just, what are we doing? What are we doing again? They ran 2 screens to Raymond McLeod. He got 5 yards both times. It was like a 3rd and 4 where they ran a screen to Mooney, and it was just like he got like negative yards. And it's like, stop this. Tear that play out of the playbook. Stop running screens and swing passes to Darnell. I went on a diatribe about this last week, and I'm just like, why are we doing this? McLeod or Bijan? Like when Bijan Bijan gets 20 yards every time he gets out the ball out in space. I'm just like, I would never run anything other than screens to Bijan. Right? Like if you're trying to be conservative on offense, just run screens to Bijan. Like this man is cooking every single time you run a screen to him. But it's just like we're gonna run it one time a game, and like that's it. And it's like, man, that should be like, we should be running 5 of these a game. But that's just me. Nitpicking on Zach Roberts' play call. So we will leave the offensive issues aside at that point. And we'll still talk a little bit more, but we'll talk about what the Falcons need to do on this short week, what this win means for the rest of their season as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So, you're watching these games and you're feeling nervous and you're wondering, you're getting this hunch, right? You're getting this feeling in the pit of your stomach. Something's about to happen. And if you feel that feeling, then head on over to FanDuel, right? And you can go and take advantage of those hunches on the same places and the same pages at FanDuel that you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on those same pages where you place those bets. Whether you want to make those in-game, FanDuel's got all the bets out there, guys, for you to make in-game bets. You want to bet on who's going to score the next touchdown, who's going to score the first touchdown, in-game, pre-game, post-game, whatever. They probably can't bet post-game, but you know what I'm saying. FanDuel's got you covered. So, if you go over there right now, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, that's guaranteed. $5, win or lose, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed only at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So the Falcons, of course, have a short week to get prepared for the Bucs, the defending division champions. And based off of their dismantling of the Philadelphia Eagles today, clearly, based off of the first 4 weeks, are the team to beat in the NFC South. And, if you thought the Bucs were not going to pick up where they left off at the end of last season, well, you thought wrong. So, they are the team to beat, and we'll see if the Falcons can sort of beat them and now, take the title, at least for the first, 5 weeks of the season, as, hey, this is the team that needs to be watched out for in the NFC South, like so many of us thought they would be going into the season. We'll see if the Falcons can live up to those expectations. But getting this win against the Saints takes a ton of pressure, where we weren't going to be going into that week 5 game in a must-win situation. Like we were, with 3 divisional games this Sunday against the Saints, at home next week, on the short week against the Bucs, and then on the road against Carolina. There was no way that you could come out of those games, those 3 games. You had to win at least 2 out of those 3 to really have a realistic shot, or at least to be able to maintain control of your destiny, going back to a conversation I had last week with Josh Kendall of The Athletic, where it's all about, you got to start racking up some wins over these coming weeks. And I was telling the Locked On Falcons insiders earlier this week, like looking at the different playoff odds, the Falcons got a week 12 bye. The way that they can maintain control of their destiny is if they go into that bye with a 6-5 record or better. That any losing record at that stage in the season, your playoff odds are stacked against you. It's an uphill climb, and it's a significant uphill climb because, again, going back to what I said earlier, we'll see what the season looks like and how the division standings look like, 7 weeks from now. But it doesn't look like the Bucs are going to be taking their foot off the gas anytime soon. And so it'll be hard pressed for the Falcons with those final 6 games, where they would theoretically maybe have to run the table if they fall too behind the 8 ball in the division, in the standings, heading into that bye week. So, basically to me, I figured that after their 1-2 start, they would have to, to get to 6-5, you have to win 5 out of your next 8. They just got 1 of those wins against the Saints. Now they got to win 4 out of the next 7. So, if you can go 4-3 or 5-2 over the next 7 games, you are sitting pretty if you're the Atlanta Falcons. Anything less than that, and it's going to be a fight for this team. They're not going to be as in control of their destiny as we would like them to be as the so-called team to beat in this division. And of course, you have 4 more divisional matchups between now and the bye week. So, as many of those wins as you could possibly get. Ideally, you can get at least 2 more out of 2-2 in the division at minimum, in my humble opinion, so that you can be in a position to have a 4-2 record by beating the Panthers in Week 18, and probably knowing the Falcons is it's going to be a win in your end type of game if things go according to plan. Obviously, we would like to have some cushion going into that game, but it's the Falcons, guys. Don't hold your breath on that one. So we'll see if the Falcons can do that. So they're off to a 1-0 start in the division. We'll see if they can continue that against the Bucs, but it takes enormous pressure off of you, where this game is no longer a must win. This is we would really like to win so that we can be 2-0 in division and clearly be the team to beat and take advantage of our situation in the division. But it is one of those situations where you do have a little bit more cushion now at this point in time. But obviously, I'm not sitting there saying, hey, it's fine if you lose this game. But it would have been a bigger issue if the Saints had pulled out this win and then you had another loss in the short week. It would have been, you're really behind the 8 ball at that point in time. The margin for error for this football team is not significant, right? Basically, with the division being where it is at, where you have 3 teams, we'll see what Carolina can do, but you have 3 teams that are really making noise in this division, and unfortunately for the Falcons, they're not making the most noise, but they can on Thursday if they take care of business. So hopefully we'll see the defense continue to make strides right? I don't know if they'll benefit as many injuries with the Bucs. The Bucs are a little beat up. A couple of guys missed this Eagles game, on Sunday. But I don't know if you're going to have as many injuries as Saints had this past week. So you'll probably get a closer to full strength version of the Bucs on Thursday night, and we'll see if the Falcons can keep Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in check in this game, if this defensive line can continue to make strides and step up, and if the defense will actually get off the field for once and not give up 35 minutes of time of possession or whatnot. But the offense really needs to step up after a lackluster week, and we'll see if the offense can continue to make strides. We know it's a first year play caller, we know it's a new quarterback and whatnot, but now we're out of September, right? Our next game is going to be October, and we talked about the Kirk Cousins slow starts, and so it's hoping that he's worked out the kinks, and this offense is going to be firing on all cylinders. We're getting solid play from Darnell Mooney and Ray-Ray McCloud, but to me, it's not a coincidence that the Falcons basically have a bottom 10 offense in a lot of categories when these guys are the two most reliable guys in terms of making plays, right? That's been a big selling point of this new regime, which was, hey, we don't need to turn over too much of the roster, right? You had probably the least amount of roster turnover under a new regime as possible. And when you look at the main players that are getting snaps on Sunday, 75% of those players are basically players that were on the team last year. And you want to see this regime. That was the promise that they made, where it's like, oh, we already assembled a playoff caliber roster, and we'll just be the guys that uplift it. Now that we have Kirk Cousins and this coaching staff, we'll be able to unlock all this talent that the Falcons have been, supposedly hoarding. And we haven't quite seen that consistently yet. And so now that needs to start to be delivered, because, again, going back to the Mooney and McCloud point, where it's just like, again, those guys are playing good football, but like an offense that's headlined by those guys is not fearing anybody, right? It is not scaring anybody. And so we need to see Kyle Pitts get more involved. We need to see him play better than what he did on Sunday. We need to see Drake London be involved. We need to see Bijan, having these, 100 yards, all-purpose games, and Allgeier doing what he can do and whatnot. And so we need to get more of that in this offense, and hopefully we'll see more of that against the Bucs. It's going to be a challenge going up against the Todd Bowles defense and whatnot with some backups, and they'll bring in the pressure and all the various things. So we know these divisional games are going to be close. They're going to be tight, just like the Bucs games were last year, where they really boiled down to who made the most plays in the final 5 minutes, just like this game is. And so many of the Falcons games this year, I'm just telling you guys, take your heart medicine, take your blood pressure medicine beforehand, because you're not going to, you're going to be restless going into, for the first 56 minutes of all these football games and going into the final 4 minutes. So we'll see what the Falcons can do if they can take care of business on the short week. Typically they've done well historically when it's come to home games on the short week. I'll look up those stats probably for later this week, but we'll be back with a shortened schedule. See if I can get a guest for tomorrow. That might be Jarvis Davis. We might have Jarvis earlier in the week. And then we'll do the All-22 review, and then we have a crossover Thursday to preview that matchup for Thursday Night Football. So we'll probably switch up some things on the schedule this week, and then we'll see. But that is going to do it for us here, guys, on today's Rapid Reaction. A good win. It wasn't the prettiest win, but hey, we'll take what we can get to send that stinking team back to their home state. Garbage. I got no smoke for Louisiana. I'm just feeling it right now. Just like, you just want to talk trash. You want to dance on their grave as you do. So we'll see what the Saints have for us, in a couple of weeks later this offseason, since I think we get them in week 9, I think week 10, somewhere around then on the rematch. But send that team back. Who that going to beat them Saints? It's going to be the Atlanta Falcons once again. So hopefully they'll get that sweep later this season, but we'll see what the Falcons could do. Guys, enjoy the win. Enjoy the short week. We got another buzzsaw coming in the division on Thursday. Great day for the defense. Appreciate that, man, Younghoe Koo. And just, man, it's just like our offense should just be, hey, screens to Bijan every single time. But that man seems to get 20 yards every single time you run a screen to him. Man, get rid of the Mooney screens. Like, what are we doing here? Stop it, Zach. Like, what are you doing? Get that out of here, man. Just screens to Bijan all day. Just spam it, right? If you want to spam a play, spam that play all day long. That's what I'll ask you. But hey, it is what it is. So, guys, that's going to do it for us here. Appreciate it. We'll be back with more on tomorrow's Locked On Falcons. So continue to make us your first listen by subscribing or following free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you check out all the great shows here on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every